I want you to think about the last time someone genuinely got under your skin. Maybe it was something small, a message that had a certain tone to it. Someone who didn't acknowledge something you did. A person who just has a way about them. You know the type. And maybe you didn't say anything. Maybe you kept it together, but inside you were burning. And the worst part, hours later, you were still thinking about it, still replaying it, still having the conversation in your head that you didn't have in real life. And they had no idea that right there. That's the thing we need to talk about today. Because most people go through their entire lives letting other people decide how they feel, not on purpose. Nobody chooses that consciously, but it happens. Someone says the wrong thing, and your whole day shifts. Someone acts a certain way, and suddenly you're in a mood you can't shake. You didn't decide to feel that way. It just happened. And after a while, you start to think that's just how life works. People do things, and you react. That's the deal. But it's not the deal. There were men who lived 2,000 years ago who figured something out. Something so simple it almost sounds stupid when you first hear it. They said, "Nothing outside of you has the power to disturb you. Only you have that power. You are the one who decides what lands and what doesn't. You are the one who opens the door or keeps it closed." Now, before you roll your eyes, I know how that sounds. It sounds like something you'd read on a poster. It sounds like the kind of thing someone says who's never actually had to deal with real people doing real damage. But hear me out, because these weren't soft men. These weren't people sitting in a room thinking beautiful thoughts. Epictetus was a slave, a literal slave. He had zero control over his circumstances, his body, what happened to him physically. And he became one of the most mentally free humans who ever lived. Marcus Aurelius ran an entire empire while people around him lied, betrayed him, and watched to see when he'd finally crack. He didn't crack. Not because life was easy, because he understood something most people never do. Your mind is yours, fully and completely yours. And nobody gets in there without your permission. Here's the shift. When something bothers you, when someone says something, does something, acts a certain way, your brain immediately starts building a case. It starts writing a story. And that story sounds like, "They did this because they don't respect me. They did this because they think they can. They did this because of who I am to them." And once that story starts running, the anger follows it like a shadow every single time. But what if the story is wrong? What if, and I'm asking you to sit with this genuinely, what if the person who snapped at you is going through something that would break most people? What if the one who ignored you is so deep in their own head they barely registered the moment? What if their behavior has almost nothing to do with you and almost everything to do with them? This isn't about excusing people. This isn't about being naive. It's about accuracy. Because most of the time when someone acts in a way that bothers you, it is about them. Their fear, their pain, their pattern. You just happen to be standing in front of it. And here's the hard part. The part people don't want to hear. The ones who bother you the most. The ones you can't stop thinking about. They're usually touching something in you that was already there. Some fear about not being respected. Some wound about not being seen. Some part of you that hasn't fully settled yet. The outside person is like a key and the lock. The lock is inside you, which sounds uncomfortable, but it's actually the best possible news. Because if the lock is inside you, then you have access to it. You can work on it. You're not stuck waiting for the entire world to change before you can feel okay. So, here's what you actually do. When you feel it rising, that heat, that tightness, that familiar feeling, you pause just for a second. Not a minute, not a deep breathing exercise, just a second. A single beat where you step back from the edge. And in that beat, you ask yourself one question. Is this something I can actually do something about, or not? That's it. That's the whole move. Not a 10-step system, not a complicated framework. One question. If yes, great. Think clearly. Respond from that clarity. Act with intention. Handle it. But if the answer is no, and most of the time it is no, then you have to be honest with yourself. Your anger isn't a solution. It's not doing anything useful. It's just damage. It's you burning yourself while the thing you're angry at stays exactly the same, untouched, unbothered, while you're the one paying the price. Seneca wrote about this. He said, "Most of what we suffer in our own minds. We take something that happened, one moment, one comment, one situation, and we carry it. We replay it. We build it into something that would have taken down a smaller person. We go to war with reality. And reality always wins that war. Always. Every single time. You cannot be angry at what is and also be at peace. Those two things cannot exist in the same space. The people who never seem to get rattled. You've met them. Nothing sticks. Someone says something sharp and it just slides off. Someone tries to pull them into drama and they just don't go. They're not cold. They're not checked out. They don't perform peace. They actually have it. And it's not because their life is easier than yours. It's not because nobody ever comes for them or says things that sting. It's because at some point they made a decision, a quiet, private, deeply personal decision, that their inner world was theirs, that they were going to guard it the way you guard something irreplaceable, that they were not going to let whatever happened outside get to decide what happened inside. That decision is available to you right now, today. Not as a concept, not as something you understand intellectually and then forget about by tonight, but as a practice, as something you return to moment. Every time you feel that pull toward reaction, you pause, you ask, you choose. And every time you do that, every single time you get a little stronger, the gap gets a little wider. The reaction gets a little slower. That's how it builds. Because the goal was never to stop feeling. The goal is to stop being controlled by what you feel. There's a gap between something happening and how you respond to it. That gap is where everything lives. Your dignity lives there. Your clarity lives there. The best version of you lives there. You just have to learn to stand in it. And listen, this isn't something you master overnight. Nobody does. You're going to slip. You're going to react when you said you wouldn't. You're going to let something get to you that you know logically shouldn't have. That's not failure. That's human. The whole point isn't perfection. The point is awareness. The point is that you start catching yourself, that the gap gets a little wider every time, that slowly, quietly, you become someone who is harder to shake. That's the work, and it's worth doing. If this hit different for you, you already know what to do. See you in the next one.